Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, this is Rich McDonald, and I play Commander David Mason on Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, it's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Plo Koon in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Everything Geek, the podcast.
Hey, it's Leif Gamfert. I played Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldavar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast, bringing you interviews from your favorite films and TV shows every week, and all of the latest news. Here's your host, Ruari Williamson.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Ruari, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have actor Joshua Hoover, who currently plays Joey in The Walking Dead. His other notable roles include Bodie in Halt and Catch Fire, Dan Darcy in Not So Union, Dork in The Nice Guys, Lunch in the Malibu Tapes, Bum in Semper Fight, Josh and Friend Needs Help, Lucky Guy Wesley in How I Met Your Mother, Host in Sleepy Hollow, Another Nerd in The Millers, and Guy in a Dress in CSI New York. How are you today, Joshua?
Good, thanks for that last one. Guy in a Dress.
Well,
that one was good.
Well, when I was looking through your credits online, doing research before the interview, I saw that one and I'm like, I have to read that one out. I know it's a tiny part, but I have to read it out.
Oh no, that was my first job on TV, so I was very happy to do that one. I loved working on that show. Yeah. It was great.
First role in TV couldn't be more memorable. You wear a dress.
Yeah, I wore a dress and I fell off a couch that was 6 feet high in the air, stacked on top of 2 coffee tables. It was on CSI New York, and my friend's dad was a stunt coordinator, and he asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said absolutely, and that's how I got my SAG card. It was awesome. Wow,
that's a really great way to get your first role on TV.
Absolutely, I had a blast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, Joshua.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
You're very welcome. And so, getting right into my questions for you, Joshua. First of all, for some of our listeners who may not be familiar with your background, can you tell us how you got into acting originally?
Oh, yeah. Originally getting into acting, I mean, my dad is a music director at a church, and we all used to be involved in all of his, Christmas plays or choir things or whatever. I mean, even at the age of like 3 or 4, I was doing shows at my church, and then from that I kind of got into high school theater and did musicals and went and studied in Chicago, then moved to LA and attacked the comedy market because I really wanted to do the SNL route. I was a big fan of Saturday Night Live. And then, acting started coming along once I got a little bit more training, and the rest is history. I mean, I got the role on CSI New York, and then from there I got an agent, manager, and then I've got a couple lucky breaks in the last couple years with Halt and Catch Fire. That was an awesome experience to be on that show and do 15 or 16 episodes, and then Walking Dead happened while I was on Halt and Catch Fire, so it was really cool to be on 2 AMC shows at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think that helped you get the role in The Walking Dead in any way, having worked on Halt and Catch Fire for AMC before?
Oh, I'm sure that it helped me in some way, but the big worry that it was going to hurt me, Cooper and I are both from Halt and Catch Fire. We both played coders on that show for the last 2 seasons. Cooper was on it for 3 seasons. He's the guy who plays Jerry in The Kingdom. But yeah, he and I both got Walking Dead around the same time. I actually booked it first because they shot the episodes in a different order. But yeah, I was really, really nervous that they weren't going to approve me because I was already on AMC show, and they don't really like crossover, or that's what my agents assumed, that they didn't like crossover too much. So it was a little nerve-wracking to do well on the audition, hear that the director wanted to pick me, or I was his choice, and then I just had to go to network approval, and my agent was like, all right, don't hold your breath because they might not like it that you're on Halt and Catch Fire. But everybody signed off, and everybody was really happy to work with me, so I was very happy to do the job.
Definitely, that's really great, and it is very interesting that you mentioned that the episode, your first episode, the third one in season 7, was shot before the first Kingdom episode, because from what I heard, it was originally going to be that they aired the episodes in the same order they shot them in regard to those 2 episodes, but of course, as we know now, having been watching the show, of course they aired the Kingdom episode ahead of your first episode, so it's interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was out, so I was worried about saying that. But yeah, they shot episode 3, and it was originally episode 2. And then they said that the first one was just so dark and so heavy that they wanted a little bit more light and a little bit more joy, is what I've heard. So they swapped them.
Yeah.
And then Cooper was so great as Jerry with his deuces and everything. So it was funny to watch him and then be like, oh, wonder what it's going to be like for my character the next week. So it was fun, you know.
Definitely. And then your first episode brought the dark right back.
What?
It brought the dark right back, your first episode.
Oh, I know. We had a little happiness, though, with that Easy Street song. Oh, my gosh, that was amazing. I love it. I've had it on my Spotify now since watching the episode and listening to Easy Street. You know. So,
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like, I was reading a lot of fan reactions to the episode afterwards, and so much of the reactions were just, I can't get Easy Street out of my head now.
I know, and the artist actually tweeted that their song made the Billboard, or made some type of iTunes chart or something like that because of the episode. So it's kind of crazy that a song that was no one had really ever heard of blew up overnight, you know?
Yeah, definitely. But The Walking Dead is good with that, like choosing songs for the episode, you know. I mean, obviously the music in the show itself that Bear McCreary does is great, but then when they get songs like that and fit them in, it's so really interesting to hear them like that.
No, I love all the composer stuff, and I love the soundtracks. I mean, that's one of my favorite things for television is when music goes well, and Halt and Catch Fire did it really well. Walking Dead does it really well. I'm blessed to be able to be a part of that kind of stuff. So I love it.
Definitely.
I mean, not to jump too far ahead, but Denny Duquette was one of my favorite characters ever on television. Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Denny Duquette on Grey's Anatomy. And that show, oh my gosh, that show's soundtracks are ridiculous. I used to download those soundtracks all the time.
That's really great.
But, yeah.
Were you a fan of the TV show or comics prior to your casting in The Walking Dead?
Yeah, I enjoyed the show. I fell off a little bit just because it's hard to watch television when you're trying to work in a lot of it. But yeah, I'm usually a comedy guy, but yeah, I love AMC. I think they're one of the greatest networks out there, and the kind of content that they put out. I was a big Breaking Bad fan. Love our show Halt and Catch Fire, and this season of The Walking Dead has been insane to me. I think Negan is such a good character. Right?
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And as someone who was a fan of The Walking Dead, you know, prior to being in the show, what was it like stepping onto the set of The Walking Dead for the first time for you? I was trying to get Joshua back now, so
It was insane, man. I don't think I realized it until the second episode, because, they said it's a possible recurring role, and I had no idea what I was reading. I had no idea who I was playing. Even when I shot the original first episode that I was in, I didn't get the script. I had no idea what was happening, but it was crazy, It was cool because when I drove up to set, I shot all of my stuff on the Sonoya sound stages. Or so far, I've shot everything on the Sonoya. The fans were outside of the stages, and that was kind of a moment where I was just like, okay, this has never happened before. Like, I shoot a lot of stuff in LA, and sometimes we'll have fanfare and all that, but for the most part, there's not tons of fans outside with signs saying, "We love you, Daryl," or, whoever they were trying to see for the day. So it was cool. It was insane. And the security was also like intense. Like, I had to show my ID, and I'm like, I'm on the show, I promise. But
yeah, I mean, that can be worrisome, but obviously because it's such a big show, like, there is a lot of security, and fans have been trying to get glimpses for years,
Yeah.
So, obviously, the security is understandable. Did it make you nervous in any way, knowing that some fans were watching?
No, I wasn't nervous about fans watching. I was more nervous about, like, screwing up a storyline or something, like if I was supposed to be seen or not supposed to be seen or whatever. I still didn't know what I was a part of, So I had a couple friends, like the script supervisor and a couple of the stand-ins and some of those friends, and even a driver, Sherry, who's one of the drivers. She was from Halt and Catch Fire, so I knew how serious they were over there, and I knew how good of a team everybody was. So I was excited to join and excited to see some of my friends and people I call family, So
Definitely, that's great. And
yeah.
Already on the show, you've had scenes with several of the main cast members, including Norman Reedus, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and Austin Amelio, who of course played Daryl, Negan, and Dwight on the show respectively. How would you describe working with all three of them?
Well, they're just a couple of great guys. I mean, they're all hanging out on set, having fun. Like, we're filming a lot of serious stuff, but if we're in between takes and stuff, those guys are just joking around and pulling pranks on each other. I know you've seen the videos of Norman, pranking Andy or some of those kind of characters, but they're just fun, man. Jeffrey was a big one for me just because I loved his stuff, previous work, and then Austin was a really nice guy to meet because he was in like Everybody Wants Some, and some of those movies where some of my friends were also in. So it was a little bit of a small world to get to work with a lot of those guys, but everybody was really nice. I had a really great experience on shooting those days, and I hope to work with them even more in the future,
Definitely. And you said all three of them were pulling a few pranks. Did any of them prank you at any point?
Not directly. I mean, I was a part of something that I don't know if I'm able to talk about really, but nothing too crazy happened. I mean, it was just being hot out in the Georgia summer, July, August. Filming outdoors in the summer was kind of insane for those first few episodes. But it was fun.
Definitely. And how would you describe your overall experience working with the entire cast and crew of The Walking Dead so far?
It's been pretty magical so far. Like I said, the second episode, which is the next episode, episode 7, was the first time that I kind of like sat back on set and was like, this is kind of like a really big deal. I don't think a lot of people, I mean, I don't do it that much in my career to just sit back and think about who I'm acting with or the projects that I'm working on, but it was fun to do it on that set and just look around and be like, I get why everybody loves this show. I understand why the fans are so crazy about this show, because these people are all working really hard on it and everybody's really talented, and it's just a good group of people to be with. You know, it was insane to feel that you were on that level with everybody else. So it was definitely a bump in the ego in that way of like, this is really fun and cool to be a part of, but at the same time I felt so humbled to, you know, be a part of something that's going to be around forever. I mean, the show is only in its 7th season, which is crazy that it's in its 7th season, but I don't see any stopping point with the comic books. And I've talked to the writers and directors, and everybody's hoping that their jobs will be around for a while, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't feel like the show is going to end anytime soon, that's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely.
And everybody's so happy to be there. Like, there was never really a sour apple, you know? Everybody was so happy to be working, and I mean, you'd have times where people were like, oh, it's hot, but then you look at everybody else and you go, oh, we're working on The Walking Dead right now, you know? So.
Yeah. You kind of just have to catch yourself at the moment. You can't complain when you're working on such a big show.
Oh, I know. I mean, and that was the other thing, like, working in Atlanta, everybody there loves the show, so if you were ever going out to eat or whatever, like, I some of my family lives in Atlanta, and the minute we'd go out to dinner, they'd be like, oh, he's on The Walking Dead, and I was like, you cannot say that. You're not allowed to, you know, talk about my character, because I can't even talk about it. And it was like, it was insane to have the fan reaction. Like, I got pulled over by a cop one time, and I was just like, oh, I'm shooting The Walking Dead here, and he was just like, oh, that's cool, man. And it was a better experience because of it, you know? So.
Yeah. Seems like a lot of the cast of The Walking Dead can get away with police if they tell them they're on Walking Dead. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the video where Lauren Cohan revealed she was once pulled over by a cop.
No, I haven't seen that.
No, if I remember correctly, I haven't watched this video in a while, but she got pulled over, and there was one day where she had been shooting a scene with a lot of gore, so she was covered, like, completely in, like, fake blood and leaves and twigs and whatever, and she got pulled over, and she basically thought, if I give him a script, maybe he'll believe me that I'm on The Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if she actually did give him the script or just show the title. Like, it could have been the front page of the script, not like any lines or anything.
Right.
Because like the front page, I'm sure you can confirm this. The front page of a script is like the show title, maybe whoever's directing the episode.
Yeah. It's just a traditional script. Yeah.
Yeah. So I highly doubt Lauren actually showed, lines or whatever. But yeah, instead, I mean, I'm not sure. I can't remember whether the police person was like really interested that much. All I really remember from that interview is Lauren said that the officer noticed she didn't have a ring on her finger and said, "Now, little lady, I see you don't have a ring on your finger. Does that mean you're single?" So probably that's not even the correct quote, but something along those lines.
We'll have to watch that video. Yeah,
I thought that was absolutely hilarious. I'll tweet it to you later.
Nice, please do.
But it was really funny. But yeah, she got pulled over as well. That's what the reference I was making was.
Nice.
Yeah, it's obviously great to hear you've had such a good experience working on the show already, and I apologise to our listeners for the little tangent, but it was all good fun.
No, yeah, I mean, I love the stuff that happens behind the scenes. I mean, I'm a fan just as much as anybody else, so when you get to hear those fun little stories, I sat down the first night and watched all the stuff I could find about, Norman and Jeffrey, and just watched those guys and see how they were to relate in person, and they were just like they were on all their interviews, super nice, and everybody was really cool to work with. Austin was a really good dude too. I really liked working with him too. He's awesome.
Nice. And speaking of behind the scenes, because we just love behind the scenes talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any funny or memorable behind the scenes memories? Not just from The Walking Dead, if you can't think of any for The Walking Dead or can't talk about them, or just any other project you've worked on that you would like to share.
Yeah. Let's think here. So, behind the scenes for Walking Dead. One of my favorite things, and it'll fit in right with Fat Joey, for Walking Dead, they always like a lot when the show's doing that well or whatever, producers or people who are part of the show love to give like gifts for the actors and the crew and everybody there. So they one day had like this coffee truck come, and it was a big thing, like who was going to get coffee in between breaks or whatever. And they were like, oh, you got to try this one. You got to try this one. At the end of the day, we all had this Twix coffee thing. And I think Jeffrey was a big fan of it too, but it's like this Twix coffee explosion. And that was one of the hits of the day. It was just like everybody was obsessed with this drink. You know, I forget the name of the coffee place. This would have been a great place to plug them. But if you go to a coffee place in Atlanta and they have the Twix drink, get it. It's ridiculous. Other than that, I mean, a couple fun things with the blood. I mean, I didn't really get to play with it too much, but there was some blood on set for the zombies or whoever, and I'd never been around blood. I'd never been around guns except for like a shooting range. So that kind of stuff was really fun to learn. And when you see some of these ridiculous guns, like it's scary to be around them unless you know how to use them. And luckily all the props guys were so great with like teaching us how to hold them and shoot them. I got a little bit of flack from how I was holding the python in the last episode. So it's good to like know that the character would still not know how to hold it very well, but I knew how to double grip it, and you know, so there's a little bit of fun behind the scenes stuff, but I don't know what else I can talk about really. Halt and Catch Fire, we had tons of fun behind the scenes as well, but that show was just more about, you know, 8 to 10 of us coders joking around and being dumb the entire time. There was one time where we had a cake on set, and it was like a wedding cake. And once we were done with getting the coverage, I was like, hey, can we do a take where we smash the cake into each other's faces? So we did that, and it made the episode. So that was kind of cool.
That's a really great story.
Yeah. But all my fun times have to do with food, apparently. Food and guns and blood. But yeah, it's fun.
Well, it's really great, and it was really interesting that you mentioned the python, because, like, I mean, obviously it's such an iconic weapon on The Walking Dead, being Rick's weapon, and you get to hold it, and, you know, it's just as well you were taught how to, you know, hold it correctly, because the fans will notice if you weren't, probably. Lots of passionate fans.
I didn't really hold it correctly. I mean, and, like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to say it's Rick's gun, but a lot of people have pointed out that I was holding Rick's gun last episode, and I was losing it because of how valuable that gun is, and I was just, you know, didn't want to scratch it or hurt it or do anything, you know. So it was fun to be with cool props. And I actually met Andrew Lincoln off set. And he was shooting that first scene where Negan's like smashing a lot of the zombies, I think in episode 1 or 2. But he comes up to me and he goes, "Are you the guy that has my gun?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm the one that has your gun." And then some expletives were exchanged, and that was it. But he's a super nice guy too. It was funny.
Yeah, when he's not accusing you of having his gun.
Yeah, but he's like the nicest guy. Andy Lincoln was one of the nicest guys I got to meet on set, yeah.
That's really great.
No.
A pity he didn't try and, steal the gun off camera and they filmed that.
Well, I don't get to carry it around when we're off camera. The minute they cut, I don't get to hold it anymore. So
yeah, I was just thinking if he did try and fight you for the gun, they could put it in like a blooper reel or something.
Yeah, that would have been funny, but we never did that. That's funny.
Yeah, outside of The Walking Dead, because obviously that's what you're currently on, which role in your career would you call the most challenging and why?
Challenging. I mean, I approach everything with, having fun, and I haven't had anything that I had to stick my teeth in too hard yet. I mean, The Walking Dead was definitely some different stuff. I mean, if it's most challenging, I'd probably say that one. Just because I've never held a gun before and I've never shot a gun outside of a shooting range, so it was kind of like interesting to have that anger or have that fear, or I in my life luckily do not feel like I ever have to own a gun, so I am happily not a gun owner. So it was a new thing to work with guns and work with some more dramatic material. But we also got to have some fun, and I think you'll see that in this next episode. There's going to be some funnier stuff and lighter stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, other than that, I'd say the next job. I mean, that's the most difficult thing to look forward to, or whatever, is like, all right, what's next? What's on the agenda next, and what are we doing next that's going to be just as fun or just as challenging as what I've had before? Because you never want to go back and do stuff you've already done before, It's not as exciting to do the same thing over and over again unless you're playing a character and going in new directions with that person,
Definitely, it's a really great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because after all, you can never tell what the future is going to hold. So you don't really know what way it's going to challenge you, but they all do in some way, kind of.
No, absolutely. I mean, if I'm back as Bodie, then I'll have a great time seeing what Bodie's going through. If I'm back as Joey, then I'll have a great time figuring out what's Joey up to next, So it's good to keep exploring those characters. But I mean, the minute an actor gets bored, I think you can read it on their face on TV. I mean, there's a lot of those shows out there, not like The Walking Dead, not like Halt and Catch Fire, where it's just the same thing every episode, So
Definitely. Now, of course, you've got a few more episodes of Joey coming up, which obviously is exciting. Looking forward to seeing more of Joey. But do you have any other upcoming acting roles or any other projects that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, man. I mean, I was in Atlanta this last year for Halt and Catch Fire and then The Walking Dead. But I had a blast working in Atlanta. The jobs that are out there, and I mean, it all just kind of went along with my schedule. I was lucky enough to do a TV show called Brockmire. It's going to be on Funny or Die IFC. It's going to be on IFC, but it's produced by Funny or Die. And that's coming out in 2017. I got to play a baseball player in that, so that was the first time I ever got to do like sports on camera. So that was fun. That's not true. I played a basketball player in a web series called Time Out. That was also very fun. Yeah, I did that, and then I did 3 movies while I was in Atlanta, so it was busy. I did The Leisure Seeker with Helen Mirren and Donald Sutherland. I got a good little scene with them, and that's going to come out next year. I did Steven Soderbergh's new movie called Logan Lucky with Channing Tatum and Adam Driver and Daniel Craig, so it was fun to work with some of those guys. And then Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I just wrapped that. That was the last thing I was working on in Atlanta. The children's book franchise, they're going to kick it up again, I think. So that was fun to play a pretty fun part in that. I played Mac Digby, who's a YouTube star, and he's good at playing video games and talking about them. So it was a departure to go kind of big with that and just be like, oh, today we're playing Mushroom Master, So it was fun to play the big character-y stuff too.
It's really exciting. Well, I'll be sure to keep an eye out for all of those that are coming
Yeah,
up.
man.
Yeah. I look forward to hearing more about them. So that's all of my questions for you today, Joshua. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Yeah, you too, Rory. I appreciate it, man. I hope it was some new, interesting information. I know I can't say too much. Talk to me after the season's over, and then we can see if we can talk more.
Definitely. I would definitely like to talk to you on the podcast again at some point.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So thanks again for joining me today, and take care. Bye.
Bye.
The Walking Dead airs Sundays at 9/8 Central on AMC, so time to wrap up today's show. Make sure to check out our podcast links, check out our website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/EGP, check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast, check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the following email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comiccast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the hosts' YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/Septus Check out Joshua Hoover on Twitter, twitter.com/FlavorHoove, and check out channel 1138 where we broadcast live from, www.channel1138.com.
Acting a long time, but basically I hitchhiked from Georgia to California when I was 19 years old. I got drunk and ended up in an acting class.
To speak, to express myself. So I started doing stage plays. And I had a teacher in high school who actually I talked about yesterday. His name was Morris Block. And he really believed in my talent and encouraged